Hey team, it is Rob here from the Better SMB podcast. Now, this episode we have Peter Crow. Now, Peter is a genius when it comes to everything governance. In this episode, he provides an awesome amount of advice and great discussion around governance and what that means for small businesses. He makes this topic so approachable, he's pragmatic and realistic. This is a must listen for SME leaders who want to structure the accountability and support in their business. Anyway, before you go on, yes, hit that follow button. It really does help us move in the direction we want and achieve our goals. And finally, hey, we had a few hiccups on the technical sound stuff for this episode, so please bear with us. We captured as much of it as we could, and hopefully it's good enough for you to listen to Peter's insights and wisdom. Anyway, that's enough for me. On with the podcast.
Welcome back to the Better SMB, where we're on a mission to lift New Zealand's productivity by helping small and medium business leaders take practical steps to improve their business performance, starting today. I'm David Alterner.
And I'm Rob Bull.
We've created this platform to spark a movement. Our BHAG is to get 100,000 businesses, that includes 15,000 manufacturers, on a journey of continuous improvement. Through the podcast, our monthly column, The Last Word, a New Zealand manufacturer, and our growing community, we're building a trusted voice for SMB leaders, offering the inspiration, insight, and implementation support they need to build high-performing, future-ready businesses.
Here we are kicking off our recording sessions for 2026, and we've got a bit of a first today. We're doing this recording in person in a studio in Papamoa, which is a part of Tauranga. What I'd like to do is acknowledge the Future Focus team and Ray Everest specifically, because they've given us the opportunity to be able to record in person using their studio setup. And the reason for that is today we've got Dr. Peter Crow with us. His LinkedIn profile says he's an advisor, director, catalyst, and he helps boards govern with impact. So let's get into what that is. Peter's an accredited director and chair. He's an advisor with an extensive record of helping boards realise organisational performance. Has served on the boards of private and PE-controlled companies, family businesses, and community agencies. Advised boards, chairs, institutional investors, and governments. He's curated director development courses and speaks and writes on topical matters. Peter holds a doctorate in corporate governance and strategy, a first in technology and management, and is a chartered member of the Institute of Directors. He lives in New Zealand but works globally. I call him a bit of an international man of mystery in the governance space because every time I'm looking to catch up with him, he's either about to go to, in, or coming back from a different country whenever we're going to meet. So as you'll be able to tell, today's subject is on governance. Many of us see governance as a little bit of a dark art. But what if governance was your competitive advantage? Welcome to the Better SMB, Peter.
Thanks very much, Dave. That's an amazing introduction because it makes it sound as if I'm on some sort of totem pole. I'm not. I'm just a farmer's son from the Waikato nearby, and it's delightful to be here with you and Rob.
Brilliant. Well, thank you for giving up your time. So most of us see governance as a bit of a compliance burden.
Yep.
From your perspective, what's the biggest misconception you encounter? And how should small businesses reframe governance and view it as a growth enabler?
Good way to start, eh?
Yeah.
We think about it as compliance, and like insurance policies, we don't want to buy insurance policies because they're there for bad things, and therefore it's a reluctant purchase. And we perceive compliance in the same way. It makes us go slow on the roads. We've got to slow down if we see a cop. We've got health and safety. Now, there's all sorts of good things about compliance because it keeps us safe, but it takes our eye off what we're trying to do, which is get to the destination. Part of the problem with governance is that we don't really understand what it is in terms of a universal definition, quote unquote. And another part of it is it's come down from the top, so big business. So one size fits all is a fallacy in this space. Part of the problem for small business, and I hear it all the time, right? Around the world. I was speaking with some people from Africa last night, and the perceptions are governance equals big business equals compliance. And that's the go-in starting comment. And of course, that's what gets the air channels. That's what gets people excited. And before you know it, it runs into SMB land as well. And so you've got reluctance before you even get into the batter's box. Okay? So it's big business, it's costly, it's structure. And I'm sitting there saying, why? And when the conversation goes, I ask questions like, well, what do you mean when you say the word governance? And inevitably, some version of compliance comes out. So, well, what if governance was about steering and guiding and piloting your organisation meaningfully, pragmatically, to get a result, like profit, like market share, like whatever? Yeah, that'd be fantastic. And I says, well, that's actually, I've just given you the definition of the word, and it's 3,500 years old. Because that's governance comes from Kubernetes, it's a great word. It simply means that, to steer and guide and pilot. So it's an active thing to get a result. It's not a structure. And so the starting point for our conversation, I'd like to think, is understanding what it is so that we can then have a launch pad for how we might put it in place, and even to the question of do we need it?
Absolutely. So you talk about piloting, which in a way is helping you get to where you're wanting to go.
Yep.
Do you think in the New Zealand business landscape generally, a lot of people don't have an idea of where they're actually wanting to get to, so therefore aren't even looking for help to get there?
Well, a lot of people are just running their business, right? So it seems to me that in small business land, there's three sorts. There's those with a great idea. They know exactly where they want to go because that's the reason they started their business. Bang, brilliant, right? There's those who inherited the business from their parents or some previous generation, and they might not have that same spark. And then there's the third category for which starting a business or working in a business is simply a job. Okay? When you layer scale on, so the two of us have got a business now, you might have an idea and I might have an idea that are different from each other. So which one? The challenge here is about keeping our eye on the ball. If we've got activity without direction, we may as well be a cork in a washing machine. We're just bumbling around doing stuff.
So picking up on that, what are some of the triggers an SMB owner could be aware of or thinking of that would make them consider a governance structure to add value to their business?
Yeah, really, really good next step, right? So if we think about a business in the context of, quote, ownership, so shareholders, directors, I'm assuming some sort of company structure now, so owners or shareholders, company director, manager. If I'm all three, so I got the shares, I'm a director legally, and I'm operating inside the business, do we need governance? My starting point is no. Because governance is about steering and guiding, so it's about decision making. I don't need governance for that, I just need the ability to make a decision. Because the other part about governance is accountability. You can't hold yourself to account. What you can do is hold others to account or give an account for what you've done. So it's about multiple parties. So this idea of governance starts to make sense when those three pieces, shareholding, directing, managing, they start to separate out and are perhaps a Venn diagram, they're partially overlapping. And so if a business owner, for example, has got aspirations to get big and wants other people at the table to help make decisions, that's a good indicator that a basic form of decision making might start to make sense. Yep. We're trying to enter a new market. I'm wanting to get another business partner in, and we're going to share the equity. And so now it becomes collective, that decision making. So there's just a couple of indicators, and I've been really careful not to use the word governance in that we description, and we can come back to that later as to why.
So have you got some good examples or moments that stand out for you where a board's involvement has clearly changed the trajectory of a business?
Yes, absolutely. Let me give you a couple of examples. They're both from primary sectors, so they're New Zealand relevant. One's a trucking company and one's in agriculture. So the trucking company, multi-generational, and we talk about specialised transport, and part of what they do is logs. So they go and get logs out of the skid sites in the forest and bring them to a mill or to a port or something like this. And I was asked to come in. The core comment from the company's accountant, outsourced accountant who contacted me was they don't want to make decisions by themselves anymore. So you've got a second generation leader who's in his, 50s at the time. Let's call him John. I don't want to make the decisions by myself anymore. I want some people around me. So we talked about what governance is. We talked about what bits that he thinks he's missing in terms of his decision processes. And we talked about a basic structure to help him. What came out of that was realisation that the North Star for the business had become clouded, that they lost sight of where they're going. And so having that different perspective enabled them to refocus in and re-hone in on what they're trying to achieve. How? They had some aspects of their business that were not contributing, or basically deflecting focus. And so sort that out, right? That's one. Second, agriculture. So multi-generational family farming business has grown over time, multiple dairy farms at scale. But they also do a bit of kiwi fruit and also do some other activities as well, but they're not business people. And we're talking about revenues in the tens of millions of dollars. And we're talking about banks and lawyers and many staff. And one year this organisation, let's just call it that, lost money. And it was simply because their accountant had taken control of their business because they weren't, and they couldn't explain their business to the bank. So there were premiums on price. The recommendation there was get some other people around the table, appoint some advisors and or directors. They went directors. And what that did was that sharpened up their decision-making and focus about what they're really good at, which is milking cows, growing kiwi fruit and doing these other activities. And so within about 2 or 3 years, they went from a red bottom line to a significant black bottom line. You know, that was multiple years ago now, but they've subsequently gone on. You're always going to get the seasonality in terms of our businesses here in New Zealand or anywhere else on the planet, but they're just two local examples.
So get specialists around you to fill in the gaps of your knowledge and confidence.
Yeah, get people who know what they're doing and have had a track record of doing it before. Don't just get consultants who are really good at using AI and regurgitating stuff as if it's knowledge. So I'll make that distinction. Miles on the road, experience, people who can understand the sector, people who are prepared to invest and build relationships with quote client unquote, and then we can start wrestling with things. Because at that low end, sorry, I don't mean that in scale, but formative, at the beginning, most of these guys don't want to let go because they think they're going to lose control. They're not, because they're putting these board members in place. They're putting the decisions in place. So you need to break bread. You need to drink a lot of cups of tea. It's about a relationship. And there are things that I've done in my role as director in some of these businesses over the years that make people go, what? So in one case, I turned up early and the patriarch was struggling physically. So there I was on my knees in the room helping him put his shoes on. Now, where's that in the governance manual? But it's about a relationship.
Certainly not part of the 4 pillars that IOD talk about, that's for sure. Now we'll get into a bit of myth busting. If there was one thing about governance that you could myth bust, what would that be and how would that benefit a small or medium business looking to grow to be that large business?
7 or 8 words, 1 sentence. And you can count the words because I never have, right? You cannot comply your way to performance. So we've got this conception of governance that it's compliance. So I myth bust and say, no, governance is actually about high performance. Focus, what is performance and how do you go forward and how does it become a strategic enabler? And if I can use a sporting analogy, it doesn't really matter whether it's rugby or football or squash or whatever, if we play to the rules and do nothing else, there's a good chance we're going to come second or worse. There needs to be a game plan. There needs to be a goal. The participants need to be on the plan. And that's all about forward-facing performance. So that's first thing. Second thing is structure is way less important than capability and activity. So what we do, because governance is a social sport, it involves people. And so what we need to do is make sure that those people are working as a unit. Team, maybe not, don't worry about that bit, but we need to be working as a unit. So we need to have a common conception as what we're trying to do. Then we focus in on doing it because it's not our money. It's the company and we're there to serve the company and its best interests. And when we're done, we just step away. So the myth bust is it's not you cannot comply your way to performance.
It was 7 words, by the way.
I know for future reference.
So now you are married to a doctor, so you've got a house of doctors. She's
Scary, isn't
it is. She's a medical doctor.
Yeah.
And where you're a PhD doctor.
Yeah.
So you've spent a fair bit of time researching this subject.
Yeah.
So from your research and experience in the space, what's something that surprised you that doesn't get talked about enough?
And it builds on that earlier comment around compliance and complying our way to performance. When something goes wrong in society, the natural instinct is to put safety rails in place. And we see that on our roads, we see lawyers stepping in and we get a bit more legislation, whatever. That actually takes our eye further off the ball because we spend our time making sure we stay inside the boundaries. Okay? So the bit that surprised me early on, I'm talking 20 plus years ago, is structure and our erection of structures has minimal impact on performance. Okay, that surprised me because I thought, okay, so if we run some processes and do things, because when we're sitting in manufacturing and we streamline up a factory, we'll get more consistent outcomes, but there's no people involved. It's machinery. You've got standardised inputs, build something, standardised outputs. Easy. Scale wins. But when you're dealing with people, when you're dealing with services, when you're dealing with variability, everything's contingent. And so what we need to do is stay very focused. And so in terms of board work, in terms of governance, in terms of getting things done, we need to make sure we've got the right capability to make good decisions. We need to make sure we focus on what matters, and we need to make sure behaviourally we're engaged and we're focused to get all of the above done. So the big difference from then and now is that whole focus on the social stuff more than the structural stuff. And it's degrees, it's not absolutes. You can't ignore the structural stuff, but it's insufficient.
So you've said board structure is less important than what directors bring, do, and how they behave.
Yeah.
If there's a 10-person company out there that's really ambitious, looking to grow, take market share, maybe they're exporting, maybe they're working within New Zealand, but they're trying to scale, what does that mean for them?
Well, it might mean there's a whole thing here called it depends, right?
Yes.
And so if we've got an ambitious company and mum and dad or just one guy are the shareholders, so it's closely held within, and he's the director and he's also the manager, then you might not need any governance at all. Let's be real, right? But if we've got some ambition to grow and we want to grow into a market for which that knowledge is not so good, you either need to go and get that knowledge by buying it, staff member, advisor, or if you think you're now going to need it on an ongoing basis for better decisions, you might get one person beside you. So the temptation in small business world is to look to your lawyer or your accountant first. Sorry for being a bit pointy on this, dumb idea. Because a lawyer's about boundaries. You need lawyers, but they're about boundaries. And an accountant is about recording what has happened in terms of the receipt and spend of money, neither of which are forward-facing. Remember what I said? Can't comply your way to performance. So you're better off to get a forward-facing person to give you a hand. Ultimately, if you're ambitious, you're going to have to grow your human capability, and a big part that's often overlooked is that leadership capability. And so as the organisation grows, becomes more successful, demand for its products and services grow, we're going to need more, things can get more complex, so therefore we're going to need more different perspectives, if you will, around our decision making. It's going to get more complex. And so through that growth, do we need governance? No. What say we start getting more shareholders? Well, that's a good idea to start thinking about things. So there's this phasing. We don't go from nothing to an Air New Zealand level of governance in one step. There's no one size fits all. There's this emergence over time.
To getting the right people around you in that phasing, it is quite okay for an owner, director, to trial and error through people, because some people don't work, some people don't gel for whatever reason. It looked great on paper. The first coffee was awesome. We thought we were mates, and it just doesn't work out. Just being brave to have those exit points as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I remember years ago now, probably a decade ago, I was party present. There was about, 20 of us in the room, and the speaker, I won't name the organisation, but I'll tell you the story. So the speaker was a chair of a listed company, right? Ambitious, growing gangbusters. And there was a strong founder still in the mix. And the conversation between the founder and the chair was, you need to recruit for the next step. So if we're going into an export market, don't just recruit somebody that can do the job today. Recruit somebody who can do the job in 2 years' time. And the story was told around the founding chair, the second chair, and the third chair, and some directors along the way, because there was different expertise required. And so this organisation, right from the get-go, had a very clear vision in terms of its endpoint and brave conversations. You know, had conversations with the management teams that somebody did a really good job, but now the business is growing away from them or whatever. It's the same conversation around board directors. Okay? Relationship, really important. Is there fit? Okay? Chemistry. Is there character where we need it to be? We can recruit for competency. That's the easy bit. But we need to make sure we're not just recruiting mates, and in particular, we're not recruiting people we don't know or that nobody knows, or diversity for diversity's sake, or whatever, which some consultants will promote heavily, because that probably swings the pendulum way the other way, and it's going to end up in tears probably.
Quite often when we're working with teams, and my partner Kate, she often talks about when our businesses, our clients are looking at hiring new people or getting on board, they go, oh, we want a good fit. And she's turned that around to, no, you want someone who's adding value.
Oh,
so it's quite a different philosophy, right?
Yeah, it is. And so a good fit for me, sorry, I should have been clear, a good fit for me is inclusive of adding value. It's inclusive.
But people get mixed up on that.
They do. They conflate stuff all over the place, right?
They're a great fit because they get on and they say yes to me all the time.
Well, if you want a yes man, go and get one. But if you want to grow a business, and knowing that there are multiple ways to skin the cat and nobody has got all of the picture all of the time, go and get people who... So if you've got a growth ambition business, the skill that is the most missing, if you will, is that critical friend. That mindset where there is super high trust, but there is that ability to say, are you sure?
So you've talked about the critical friend.
Yep.
If we've got an SME starting to think about governance, they've got that growth mindset, they've got multiple parties involved, they're looking to step out of their knowledge space.
Yep.
What's the first practical step they're taking?
Get their directors together. Let's assume there's more than one, right? Get their directors together and say, we want to sit down as directors. So remember that a board is simply the collective name for the directors, right? So we want to sit down and on some sort of structured basis have a regular meeting, and we want whoever the chief executive, general manager, whatever the name of that person is, to come to that meeting, and it may be one of them, to come to that meeting and say, this is what I've been doing since we met last time, and this is what I'm planning to do for the next period. And here's our financials, and summary financials, not line by line, and this is how we're tracking. Now, that might be a 1 hour meeting over coffee once a month. It's a start. But as you build into that, and from that, we might say, okay, strategically, where are we going? And let's not use the big words of purpose and strategy. Let's use North Star and roadmap. Sounds biblical, doesn't it? It works. So where are we trying to get to, and what pathway or roadmap? And you might only have half a dozen bullet points. That might be enough to carry us for the first 6 or 12 months. Don't overbake the cake.
One-page strategy.
All of that.
And it could be handwritten.
Mine is. It's actually sitting there typed up, but if in effect. Yep.
So we've talked about where governance fits, how you get started, that sort of thing. What's a sign you don't need it?
If all of the shareholders are also directors, are also working in the business as managers. So there's a complete unification or overlap in that Venn diagram. And all of the decision making is day-to-day, minute-to-minute, and the ambition is moderate or lowish. Don't need governance. Easy. Because they're going to steer and guide and pilot it from the perspective of management. And to put that extra layer of board stuff, whatever that is going to slow them down and frustrate them. That'd be one. And so if I think about Quarry Group Limited, the business that I'm a 50% shareholder alongside the other doctor, do we have board meetings? Yes. How often? Once a year. It's called the annual meeting because we put in front of ourselves a document. That's our annual accounts. Accountant prepares them, we sign off, and then we'll have a glass of wine. And then we'll have, quote, board meetings, unquote, where we talk about our hopes and dreams. That's it. But if you were to join the organisation, if you were to become a shareholder, if, then we'd structure it up a little bit differently. So it's none, rudimentary, bit more, but not so much that it ends up becoming a constraint.
So today's about getting a quick episode, a bit of a dive into the space for the people who are listening.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure we'll get you back at some point for some more targeted discussions, but we've got a few kind of quick fire questions for you that Rob's going to go through now, just to get a little bit behind who is Peter Crow and what are some of those influences. So over to you, Rob.
Yeah, and before you say that, listeners, if you've got more questions so we can sort of tackle some of the Q&A that means something to you, please fire it forward. LinkedIn, all of those usual channels that you can get hold of us so we can put them back to Peter at another time. But now, Peter, I'm going to start with the easiest one because we prepped you beforehand. Our quick fire questions.
Yep.
Most recommended book.
Easy. Fish Rots from the Head, Bob Garrett. Right, so fish rots from the head is an ancient Chinese saying, but Bob Garrett is one of my mentors, and yes, I have mentors. Garratt. He's a gentleman of approximately 83 years old, and he's one of the 5 doyens of corporate governance globally. The Fish Rots from the Head, 1996.
Excellent. I've got a goal this year to read 26 books, one each fortnight, so that may slip into the schedule.
Yep.
Okay. Most influential leader in your career, and maybe a quick why.
In my career, I'm going to say Peter Rebel. He is now the mayor of Thames Coromandel. And if he ever hears this, he'll probably laugh. He was the guy that saw something in me 30 years ago when I took on what was then, I didn't know it, but my last staff leadership role. And he nurtured me through a 3-year period for a technology company that no longer exists called Novell.
Okay, and this will timestamp when we are doing this episode, because we are just probably 2/3 the way through our summer. Your favourite great summer breakaway spot in New Zealand?
Yeah, so I'm that guy, as Dave has mentioned in the introduction, I'm that guy who spends a reasonable amount of time on aeroplanes. So not going on an aeroplane is really good, right? And so hanging out with my wife, absolute priority for breaks. 2 locations. I like going to Ohope because it's not well developed like the Mount has become. And I also like going to our place in the Sunshine Coast, and it does involve an aeroplane, but it's sort of an exception because of where we're going. We've been going there for 40 years. And it's the same place, it's there every time, and we know exactly what we've got. It's not flash, and it works.
Simplicity.
It's taking it all away, because when you're in a profile contribution and people have an expectation around access and availability, hiding, quote unquote, with my books, with my best friend, with walking, whatever, is the best thing I can do. You've got to refill the batteries.
Absolutely. No, I love it. My favourite spot is Wheretoa. My parents live there.
Oh, really?
And why we love it is it's still only got the dairy and the surf club, and that's it.
It's good, eh?
There's no through roads, there's no traffic. Put the keys inside, and that's it for a week. You don't even pick up, hop in the car. It's bliss.
So thank you, Peter. One of the key things for me that I've taken away from this is not to be the cork in the washing machine. Really, today's been about intentionality, this idea that you can't comply your way to performance. And for those of us that are thinking about how we grow businesses that perform and help underpin the goals and successes that we want, perhaps governance is a part of that. Do you need it? What are you building? Who are the people you need to get on board to help you get to that destination? How are you aligning and deciding with those people? Your reference to governance equaling high performance, that almost exactly aligns with what we're all about here at the Better SMB. So thank you very much. And until next time, all the best.
Pleasure. Thanks very much, both of you.